Aline Wilson here, and I'm going to read to you from Carolina Linthead, the book that my husband self-published. This is Chapter 10, The 1930s General Strike, as seen by a 12-year-old boy. The general strike in the 30s was widespread. A lot was written about the cotton mills of Gastonia, North Carolina, where there was more controversy, and even mills in South Carolina. But not all mills struck. Jackson Mills of Wellford was one example where the workers did not strike. Just why not, I never understood. I was only 12 years old, so I learned what little I did by overhearing and observing. No one ever sat down and explained the situation. The strike had a divisive effect. You were either a striker or you were not. There was no in between. Years earlier, when we lived in Wellford, my father was a weave room overseer, but in Tuckapaw, he was not in a supervisory position. I suppose his past history helped shape his opinions because he never took the union position. This, of course, influenced the thinking of his family. I suppose the same theory applied to that other side. I always figured higher pay was the driving force behind I always figured higher pay was the driving force behind the union's efforts, but extensive research reveals that the main worker complaint was something called the stretch-out system. Under this system, the mill increased the number of machines a worker was supposed to tend, but the pay remained the same. The main worker complaint was that extra physical strain left him or her exhausted. I remember hearing adults complain bitterly about the new system, but never understood it. Incidentally, I don't have any backup figures, but as I remember, most wives worked in the mill, usually in a different department from their husbands. I remember a small schoolyard incident in which I was involved, but even this was comparatively benign. We went running and playing during recess when one of the older striker boys approached me and put his hand on my neck to pin me against the side of the brick school building. He started to call me names and tell me how he was going to hurt me. One of his buddies, Bobby Paget, who was my neighbor and came from a striker family, came to my defense. "Leave him alone, he's all right," Bobby said, or words to that effect. The other boy freed me and disappeared, probably to go and harass some other non-striker. I always have had a warm spot in my heart for Bobby because he let his head rule out his friends' feelings. That was a minor incident. The thing I remember more vividly about the strike was that strikers were called cabbage heads and non-strikers were called red apples. And here's why. With no income, food was in short supply for all. Someone who looked with favor on the strikers brought in a wagon full of cabbages and distributed the cabbages to the strikers and their families. Not to be outdone, someone who favored the non-strikers produced a wagon load of red apples and distributed them to the non-strikers. Hence the nicknames red apples for those who opposed the unions, and cabbage heads for those that favored them. I thought this was pretty neat. Even at this age, I was a beginning food word nut. Bella, be still. I don't know the background, but someone arranged for one of the two groups to visit the grammar school on alternate days with a lunch for the students. Because the red apples and the cabbage heads couldn't agree to visit together, they came on alternate days with food. I remember little of what they served, but I suppose we got our bellies full of cabbage soup and red apples. The lunch was not very big, but for some of the more unfortunate kids, it was about all they got. That's enough for today. I'll pick it up again another day. Thank you for watching and for Bella helping me.